All right, so let's take a stab at actually sketching out a layout for our AdventureWorks dashboard. And if we think back to our dashboard design framework, remember step one was to define the purpose, the objective. And to do that, let's think all the way back to our project brief at the beginning of the course. And what I've done here is reiterate or rehash the goals that we need to achieve. Track KPIs, compare regional performance, analyze product level trends, and identify high value customers. Now, that's way too much information to put on a single page or in a single view. So I think what we need to do here is create a multi-page dashboard. When I start to think about these goals, a couple words pop out, right? KPIs, regional performance, product level trends, and customers. So when I think KPIs, I think about an exec dash, right? Those high level numbers, the things executives care about like profit, revenue, high level trending, and so on. When I think regional, I think geospatial analysis. So something like a map view. Product level, I think we need a product detail view. And same with customers, we need a customer detail view as well. And that way we'll create pages that kind of each serve a very distinct, deliberate purpose and collectively help us achieve all of these goals for the dashboard. Now, thinking back to our three key questions with the AdventureWorks data in mind, remember question one, what type of data are we dealing with? Well, remember we've got calendar tables, so we certainly have time series, and we'll definitely do a lot of line charts and time trending in our dashboard. We've got categorical fields as well, like product category and subcategory, different ways that we can segment or slice and dice our data. We've got geospatial, right? We've got that territory lookup with fields like continent and country and region. And we also built some hierarchies as well. Question two, what are we trying to communicate? Well, that may vary depending on the individual visual, but generally speaking, we'll definitely be showing some comparisons between categories and certainly over time. And we'll also show composition. Got some great demographic fields in our customer data set that we can use to make some interesting compositional analyses there. Now, we likely won't be doing much in terms of distribution or relationships with this data set. So I think primarily we're going to be focusing on comparisons and composition. So we should expect to see a lot of line charts, a lot of bar and column charts, maybe some donuts, some gauge charts, things like that. And last question, who's the end user, right? Who's the audience? It was right there in the brief. This is for managers. So what's nice about managers is it kind of puts us right squarely in the middle between the lower level analysts who are looking for all sorts of deep detail and the super high level executives who just want the KPIs, the key numbers, right? So with an audience of the management team, I think we certainly should still skew towards keeping things pretty basic and simple, standard chart types, but I think we can afford to get a little bit detailed, especially to accomplish some of these goals, like product level trends or individual high value customers. So next up, I want to start visualizing what this might actually look like. I'm going to start with kind of the exec view or the exec dashboard here. And this is typically an iterative process. You may very well have no idea what the dashboard is going to look like. In this case, I've got a pretty clear idea of what I want this to look like, but just know that it won't always be this smooth or this polished right out of the gate. So when I'm starting to think about how to assemble components of a dashboard, I'm often thinking in terms of something called a reading pattern, which is basically how the viewer's eye moves along the screen. And here in the United States, two very common reading patterns are called the F pattern and the Z pattern. So with an F pattern, the viewer starts looking in the top left corner first, their eyes kind of scan from left to right, then they go back and down, scan left to right again, back and down, kind of forming that F shape. The Z pattern, as you might guess, again, you're starting in the top left, moving left to right, kind of moving down diagonally to the lower left corner, and then to the right to the lower right corner. So either way, the key is that this top strip, this top real estate, is the most important real estate in our dashboard because that's the first place viewers are going to look. So what I typically like to do is put the company brand or logo right there to kind of set the immediate context, and then put my big KPI cards right there in the top right. So these are going to be like our high level overall numbers. Things like total profit, total orders, total revenue, things that executives and the manager team will really care about seeing first and foremost. Moving down to the left, this is kind of our next most important piece of real estate. I'm trying to think about what managers typically care about. It's the money, right? It's revenue, it's trending, it's profits. So let's put a nice line chart trending view here. Maybe we can use a date hierarchy so that users can drill up or drill down at different levels of granularity. And every time we're showing metrics like this, it's really important to include context, right? So I think what we might be able to do is include some nice KPI cards down here that can show something like current month revenue. And again, that's going to give us context like current month, previous month, month over month change, and so on and so forth. Now, one thing I do typically when I'm designing dashboards is I'll kind of get more and more granular as I move through the reading pattern. So that's what we're doing here. We've got very, very high level metrics here. We've got still pretty high level overall revenue trending here. Now I think what we can do is start breaking down that revenue a bit by doing things like a product category breakout. This is a good way to show comparisons across categories. So this could be categories. And then I don't want to get too deep here, but I think a little bit of a product level view here would be helpful. Maybe just like the top 10 revenue driving products or something like that. To do that, we can use a table or a matrix. Let's call it top products. And maybe we use some conditional formatting just to bring that data to life a bit. So that looks pretty good. I think it's painting a pretty good high level picture of how the business is doing. Simple charts, simple visuals, not overwhelming. I think that's a great starting point. But now what we need to think about is the user experience, right? Because this is just one view out of the 4 that we plan to build within this dashboard. So I want to create a very intuitive, user-friendly way for our audience to jump from page to page. So one thing I like to do here is something like a left nav, almost like a website style, where we can put some icons right here on the left that will use page navigation and bookmarks to jump users straight from page to page. So now real quick, let's take a look at what those additional pages might look like. Again, nothing set in stone. This is kind of quick and dirty at this point. But remember, we've got a map visual for geospatial, we've got product detail, and we've got customer detail as well. So for map, here's a sketch of the world's worst map. You get the picture. Maybe we've got a slicer up here to drill into a specific country or continent. I think that's all we need for that view. Product detail. I'd like to focus in on an individual product for this page. And remember in the DAX section, we built out those really nice targets, right? The revenue target, the order targets, the profit targets. So I think we could use something like gauge charts here to show product performance against those targets. That would be a really helpful insight to show on that view. And then I think we need some trending views here as well, like revenue or profit trending. Maybe do a column chart trending to show returns or return rate as well. Something like that I think will give some good product specific detail. And last but not least, for customers, maybe we start with kind of some high level metrics, total customers, maybe revenue or orders per customer. This is a good place to do some of that kind of composition analysis because we've got those categorical fields with customer demographics like income level, gender, age, education level, and so on. So a donut chart might be a great way to visualize that. I think we should show some sort of trending view here as well, like total customers. And because we want to identify individual high value customers, we really need some table or matrix level details here, like top end customers, whether that's 10, 50, 100. And last but not least, we've been taking a very exploratory approach to dashboard design to this point, which means we're not trying to craft a specific narrative to explain exactly what's happening and why. We're creating a dashboard or a tool that our end users or managers can use to explore and understand the data on their own. But to add a bit of an explanatory vibe, one thing we could do here is drop in, an insight or an info button, find an interesting pattern or trend, and then use a bookmark to kind of really draw attention to that pattern and drive users to a pre-filtered view to really help tell that story. So there you have it. This is a great starting point. Hopefully this will serve as a nice framework as we build out the dashboard throughout this section.